Hello friends. So recently I did a video about some books that seem to be very polarizing, that create a divide among readers. Some people love them and some people hate them. And I wanted to do something very similar, not about specific books, but just about things that have to do with books themselves. And so I'm going to go through 10 different things that I think a lot of us feel very strongly about, and we fall into two different camps. Jumping into it, the first thing would be broken spines. So I don't mean you're at the bookstore and it's a used bookstore and some of the books have some wear and tear. I mean people that break spines. Where do you fall on that? I don't break the spines of my books if I can avoid it. I really try not to. Sometimes it creases a little and then you're like, dang it, and you can't really help it, right? A lot of the UK paperbacks. You all have better covers over there, but the sizes of your books, it makes it basically impossible to read inside. It's inevitable. You kind of have to, you're like, I can't, no, and then you break the spine. But I avoid it as much as I can. However, some people, they feel no shame. They don't care. They're like, it's an inanimate object. Why would I care? And they break the spine. And I'm wondering where you fall on that. Are you a spine breaker? Or are you like, no, I can't do that to my baby? The next one is deckled pages. And if you're wondering what that is, it's when the pages themselves are uneven. So they're cut purposefully uneven. I like the look of deckled pages. I think it makes books look older, and there's something about it, just automatically has this extra charm to the presentation of the book when the pages are deckled. However, I also understand, and it sounds ridiculous, this is going to sound like the most first world problem ever, it makes it hard to turn the page. Sorry, even saying it sounds so stupid and ridiculous. But I understand. I used to, when people would say, I don't like deckled pages, it makes it hard for me to turn the page, I was like, come on now. But I get it. I do. You go to turn the page and you're like, well, this one's a little longer, so the next page is kind of behind it. Gosh darn it. And you're like trying to smush. And it can be frustrating. I understand now. Either way, I still would fall in the I like deckled pages camp. However, some people, beyond just not liking how difficult it makes it to turn the page, they just don't like the way it looks. They think it looks ridiculous. They think it looks like somebody messed up, that the thing that's supposed to cut the pages, that it ruined it. And I just disagree. I think deckled pages are very nice. This next one has to do with split editions. I'll explain what I mean by that in just a second here. But I want to start by saying this is no shade to Reagan from Prue's Project. I think Reagan's great. But she was the first person I saw who liked this, and I was like, really? So what I'm referring to is when some people like having some books in a series be paperbacks and then other books in the series as hardbacks. I love the look of a shelf when everything matches, as you can probably notice if you look behind me. I like when things are even, especially within a series. Within a series, I don't want it different. I want it to be the same. And so when I heard that, I was like, oh, I didn't realize some people liked it. And I kind of get it, because I do think that it creates texture, we'll say, to your bookshelves. It adds depth and variety. But I am curious where you fall. And also I'll add, beyond just different within a series, on an individual shelf, for those of you that also like to have physical copies of books, do you like your books to be even, or do you like there to be some variety? Maybe not different within the same series, but different within the same shelf. If I can, I try to keep it all the same. But we all can see that. So we're going to move on to the next one. The next one would be bookshelf organization. So this is not just, oh, some paperbacks here, some hardbacks here. I mean how you organize your books. Some people will turn their books around because they might be unread books, or maybe books that they have on their TBR. And they will purposefully turn them around, and then it'll be you pick one off the shelf and you don't know what it's going to be. And I think that's really fun. I think there are creative ways to use your books turned around. Some people like to turn their books around, and then as they read them, they turn them back. And so they can very clearly see. I just think that's fun. I don't think that how anybody organizes their books is bothersome. However you want to organize your books, that's your house. Within my house, I'll organize my books how I want. And I'm not going to tell somebody else what to do. That's where I fall. I'm just curious. Where do you fall? Where do you fall? Are you all practicality? Your books have to be organized in a practical way? Or are you, I like to mix practicality with the look? I'm very curious to know. This next one honestly baffled me the first time I heard it. I didn't realize this was even a thing, but it is a thing. Some of you have maybe never heard of this before. There are people that purposefully want to know the spoilers. They want to know the biggest moments in the book. They want to hear about it. They want to watch live show discussions. They want to watch spoiler-filled reviews for books they want to read before they read them. That blew my mind. I didn't know that people did that. I understand when you're like reading a book and you miss a character and you're like, are we coming back to this character? When are we coming back to this character? And you skip ahead and you're like, okay, in 2 more chapters, I'll be back with my favorite character. I get doing that. That's not really the same thing. I'm trying to understand. I fall in the camp of do not tell me the biggest moments of the books. Don't do it. I don't want to know who dies. I don't want to know. I don't want to know those things. But some people do. And I think that that's amazing. And to be clear, I'm not talking about content or trigger warnings, because I know some people feel those can be spoilery, and I'm not really referring to that. I can understand why if somebody knows they have a personal thing that is very difficult for them to read, why they might want to know if that's going to be in the books. That's not what I'm talking about. I mean just purely you want to know what's going to happen, who's going to end up with who's going to kill who's going to betray who. You want to know all of that before you get into a book? No, thank you. That is not me. But if you are that kind of a person, I think it's really cool that we can have such different takes on how we approach books. This next one is my husband in a nutshell, at least one of the sides of this. So there are, I think, 2 kinds of readers who read in public. There are the kind of people that are reading and they want someone to come over and say, what you reading? So they can tell them all about it. And then there are some people that they're reading in public and someone says, what you reading? And they think, something, clearly, so please leave me alone. And that's my husband. He does not like when people come up to him while he's reading a book. I maybe don't really want you to interrupt me while I'm reading a book either. I also don't really want to talk to any strangers. It scares me. But I would say maybe I'm not as extreme as my husband. Sometimes he'll text me and he's like, I'm trying to read during my break and people are talking to me. And I was like, oh no, people want to talk to you. It's so terrible. But also, I'm just kidding, and we tease each other. And I get it. I get not wanting people to talk to you. I would say I probably fall into that camp too. I don't really want you to talk to me. I'm reading a book. There's a reason I brought my book. Part of the reason is I want to read, and the other reason is I don't want to talk. So, it serves both those things. So don't disrupt that. However, it is fun to talk about books. I mean, I clearly have a channel so that I can talk about books with people. I love getting to chat in depth with books. Recently, Erin from Booked and Busy hosted a read-along for Live Ship, and we talked about the first book in depth, Ship of Magic, and I had the best time. However, if somebody interrupts me so that they can be like, what are you reading? I don't want to talk about it in that moment. There's a time and a place, is what I'm saying. I'm just teasing. This is all in good fun, but I do want to know where you fall on the what you're reading. Do you want people to ask you, or are you like, leave me alone, please and thank you? This next one, I really don't have to go all that in depth. Just ships, meaning who ends up with who, is one of the most divisive things I have ever seen among readers. If you dare to say that you don't like a couple that everybody else loves, people are gonna get mad. And if you dare to say that you love a couple that everybody else hates, people will sometimes treat you like you must be a horrible human being. How could you possibly like them together? And I think there's something to be said of liking a fictional couple that you obviously would not like in real life. You wouldn't want those characters together in real life. There's just this indulging in the sort of darker vibes. I mean, I think that if you like Glockta and you like super morally gray characters, but then you stick your nose up a little bit and you're shaking your head and judging somebody for liking Alina and the Darkling, that doesn't really make sense to me. I get it if you're like, I don't want a young reader to read that and think that's healthy. But I mean more if you're an adult and another adult is like, I kind of secretly ship Alina and the Darkling, and you love Glockta, who's a torturer, and you love all these super villainous or morally gray characters, and you hear that, and you're like, how could you? That doesn't make sense to me. But again, it's just fun to see. It's all fine as long as everybody is just teasing, or as long as everybody is respectful. But some people get really divisive and really angry and really mean in regards to ships. And I don't get it. I don't get why you would get that worked up over something that at the end of the day is not harming other human beings. So I'm like, I feel like there's more important things. I know that that's a blanket statement, and that's true for most things that we complain about and vent about. I just don't know why you would get that angry to the point where you're leaving somebody a dissertation telling them why they're wrong and they're horrible for liking a certain ship or not liking a certain ship. So this was probably the least fun one on here. Even though I think ships should be fun. I think it should be fun to be like, I love these two. I think they're cute. Or whatever, however you talk about ships. I just don't... It makes me sad that this one can be so divisive. It can be so fun to see who likes who with who or whatever, but it also can be awful because people can be really mean to each other about it. Next, we have retellings. So there's two camps of people I would say I've come across. There's nuance. Sometimes there's more than two camps, but generally I have found there's two camps when it comes to any kind of a retelling, whether it's a fairy tale retelling, a mythology retelling, whatever it is. There is you can do whatever you want. In fact, the more original and fresh and unique you can make the retelling, the better. Or just in general, I don't really care. You don't need to stick to any specific plot points from the original story that you're pulling from. If it's inspired by it and it's retelling, do whatever you want. If I like the book, I like the book. If I don't like it, I don't like it. That's that. And then there's the camp of, I don't care if the story was good. I don't care if the writing was good. You left out this important thing about the original, so you can't even call it a retelling. Or now at this point, I just feel like it's not even the same thing. And I get that it's a retelling, but you have to have this thing in it. That mindset is definitely not me, but I think it depends. I feel like the way I presented that one, it was like those people that fall into that are ridiculous, which I don't mean, but it's more of that I can see why somebody would feel that way if they have a very strong connection with the original, especially if there's added significance, maybe that mythology or that fairy tale or that story is really important to your family, your culture, where you're from. So I understand why if somebody then takes it and does something with it, it can feel kind of insensitive. I get why some people can feel that way. There's also some people that feel there's inaccuracies if it's a historical story, if it's a story that's tied to a certain place at a certain time and you leave out certain details, then it throws them out of the story. Retellings are tough. I definitely am like, what did I think of this book? I don't feel I have really all that strong of a connection or any authority on any story. So when there's a retelling of it, I'm like, I'm just gonna base my thoughts on this. If they do clever tie-ins with the original, I appreciate that. If they take something from the original and they do something so different and unique and clever, I'll appreciate that. And then other times, I don't know much about the original, so I'm just coming to the story fresh, I guess you could say. So I'm very curious where you fall in the retellings camp. This next one's very straightforward. I feel like this falls more along the lines of the things I was talking about at the beginning, and that would be lending out books. Pretty straightforward. Do you lend out your books? Or are you like, never, ever, I did it once, and somebody spilled coffee on it, and I will never do it again? Or something along those lines, where they never gave the book back, they damaged the book, they got the book dirty, whatever the case may be. I love lending out books. If somebody comes over and they look at my bookshelves, I immediately are like, what do you like? I think you'll like this. You should borrow this. And I really like lending out books. I think it's fun. I think because I like the idea that my books are like a library. So if somebody comes over, they can look and they can pick. I think that's great. It's one of my favorite parts about having books. But some people are like, these are mine. These are precious. You will not touch them with your dirty, filthy fingers. Get away. And then the last one is DNFing. This one people can be very angry about also. This one, you can make an entire video dedicated to a conversation about DNFing. I'm just going to keep it short and sweet here. Do you DNF books, or are you somebody who has to finish a book? That's it for some things I've noticed are very, very divisive among readers. And I'm very curious where you fall for each of these. Are you somewhat in the middle, or would you say you definitely fall on the extremes? And then also, if you would like to watch the polarizing books that I want to read video as a follow-up to this one, I'll have that linked in the description bar. But anyway, thanks so much for watching. I hope you have a great rest of your day, and I'll see you all later. Bye.